started off by just kind of thinking what might students new to NGL want to know, and also how could we give faculty a sense of what we've been learning and what our experience has been like. So we started off with just brainstorming everything that we've learned and distilled those ideas to a couple topics. And as we looked at the list, we realized that all of these topics fit under the broader umbrella of apprenticeship, and we could all pretty readily come up with anecdotes of something that happened in NGL where we felt like this was a demonstration of apprenticeship. So we kind of decided that's what we wanted to talk about, and then we just kind of thought through how we could make the presentation interactive and relevant.
We shared in the different kinds of involvement as we were all working together in these different projects. So for myself, coming from the ed department, I think it was exactly the kind of experience that was promoted as a feature of the education department, and that we were to receive as doctoral students, and it was very impactful. That being said, I think it's also important to just mention that I think that these experiences are instrumental in supporting our further development as of our identities as scholars. So in that regard too, I think it was very powerful for a lot of us.
Embracing the messiness, we were really just thinking about the messiness of learning together and what that meant across disciplines, because we all had completely different orientations.
For my group, embracing the messiness was about the writing process itself. So in the strengths group, we wrote a chapter for a book in the spring and summer. And it was this amazing view of the actual, the production work of academia and what it means to actually produce writing with a group, and how even because we're so used to seeing the finished beautiful products that have been published. So I think as students, we don't realize that our advisors and other professors also write sentence fragments and ... need to add more here later kinds of things. And that, we would have conversations around the purpose of the whole chapter, then the purpose of the paragraphs. And it was amazing to see how what at first was just a pile of writing, with all of us thinking together, formed into what ended up being a chapter that I think we're all really proud of. And so it was nice to see that experience and to participate in creating a collaborative piece of writing that it's a messy process.
It was just interesting to listen to faculty talk about different venues. So they talked about, the credibility was based on an established reputation of a venue, or for newer venues, it was about the reputation of the committee members. And yeah, it was just interesting to learn about that part of research. And yeah, I feel like that's just the kind of things that you pick up along the way as a researcher, and it was cool to gain that insight here with NGL.
So one thing that the students were discussing is that we love the opportunity to be able to have interactions with faculty who was senior, but also newer faculty members who are in the process of also establishing their academic career. And us graduate students, that some of us had a little experience in writing, some of us have non-experience in writing some topics. So it was nice to see how our ideas, experiences, but also interests are connected, and how we could produce not only papers, but also ideas and conversations that were meaningful to the group.
The other component that was really wonderful about our experience working with the whole NGL group, but also on our smaller groups, has been the opportunity to collaborate with graduate students at different phases in their careers also. And so, in the case of, I was on the language group, and we had graduate students who were just beginning their graduate studies, and somewhere in the middle around qualifying exams, and then also a couple of folks who were at the towards the end and finishing up, and so that just provided this sort of really fertile ground for our apprenticeship with one another as well, in addition to the kinds of apprenticeship that we were participating in with the faculty members.
Best practices in terms of scheduling and, you know, figuring out like when to do what things, because I feel like there's always, whenever something new is assigned, it's like, this is the top of the to-do list, but it was really helpful to see like, oh wait, actually in a week from now, that's when realistically things can happen.
As graduate students, sometimes we don't feel like we can be honest about what we know is realistic in terms of our timeline to produce things. So to observe faculty members say, realistically, I'm not going to be able to do this for 2 weeks was really helpful in sort of showing that it's not somehow shirking the work to be honest and realistic about when you'll be able to tackle something and then to actually tackle it then. And that sometimes, you know, sometimes we need models of that. So it was really, that was another piece that came up in the collaborative writing process.
You know, the last thing I want to say here is this is a topic that is becoming so important for me personally as a scientist, especially in light of recent events. And that is, why do we do science? And particularly with who should care about science and what we can do with our research and how it can help better humanity, really.